My husband announced he was leaving me at my birthday party in front of all our guests, but he started yelling when I said, "Perfect, I already filed for divorce yesterday." I never thought my 40th birthday would become both the most humiliating and the most triumphant day of my life. Our suburban Dallas home was packed with guests, 50 of my closest friends and family. Everyone I loved had gathered to celebrate my milestone birthday. Everyone except my husband Mike, who was physically present but mentally somewhere else. For the past few months, he'd rarely been here with me and the kids. "Linda, make a wish," my sister said, bringing over the birthday cake with flickering candles. I glanced at Mike. He was nervously adjusting his tie and secretly checking his phone. Strangely, I felt an unusual calm, probably because I already knew what was coming. As everyone started singing happy birthday, I noticed my husband suddenly straighten up and confidently walk to the center of the living room. He always loved being the center of attention. 20 years of marriage, and I'd learned all his gestures, all his habits. I knew he was about to do what he'd been planning for weeks. "Friends," he raised his champagne glass, "I'd like to make a toast." The room fell silent. Everyone smiled, expecting touching words from a loving husband. "I have a special gift for Linda on this important day." He paused, as if gathering courage. "I'm leaving her for Jennifer." Dead silence filled the room. 50 pairs of eyes stared at me, full of shock and pity. My mother pressed her hand to her mouth. My sister froze holding the cake. Our children, Jason and Emily, sat paralyzed with horror. And me? I slowly put my glass down on the table, looked straight into Mike's eyes, and smiled. "Perfect," I said calmly. "I filed for divorce yesterday." Now it was Mike's turn to freeze in shock. His triumphant moment, his dramatic exit, everything had gone off script. He was supposed to be the one leaving me, the one in control. Instead, I'd beaten him to the punch. "What?" He turned pale. "You couldn't have... You're bluffing." "Check your email, honey." I kept smiling. "Your lawyer already received the papers. Oh, and by the way, our accounts are temporarily frozen." "I hope Jennifer isn't expecting expensive gifts anytime soon." Mike started yelling. Something about my ingratitude, my schemes, how I'd ruined everything. But I wasn't listening anymore. I turned to our guests. "Sorry about the little family drama. Shall we get back to the party? Who wants cake?" I'd known about Jennifer for 6 months. When you've been married for 20 years, you sense changes in your husband like changes in your own body. New cologne, sudden business meetings in the evenings, strange calls where he'd leave the room, and of course, the classic sign, a password on his phone that had never been there before. At first I cried. Every night, locked in the bathroom so the kids wouldn't hear. Then came anger. And after that, determination. Jennifer, his secretary from the car dealership. 27, 15 years younger than me. I'd seen her twice at company parties. A tall blonde with perfect manicure and laughter that sounded like silver bells. Mike looked at her the way he once looked at me. I had become invisible in my own marriage. "Mrs. Harris, if everything you've told me is true, we have a very strong position." The divorce attorney, Sarah Levinsky, smiled professionally at me across her desk. This was our 3rd meeting. I handed her a folder with bank statement printouts. "Here's the evidence. For the past 3 months, he's been withdrawing $5,000 in cash. Our family never spent that much cash." Sarah nodded, reviewing the documents. "And here are receipts from a jewelry store and reservations at the Four Seasons Hotel. I checked our house. I haven't received any new jewelry." I smirked bitterly. "And we definitely haven't stayed at the Four Seasons." "Are you sure you want to file the papers right now?" Sarah asked. "Maybe talk to your husband first?" I shook my head. "He's planning his exit at my birthday party. I overheard him on the phone. He wants to do it publicly, in front of all our friends and family." "How do you know?" "He was rehearsing his speech in the shower. I accidentally heard." I winced, remembering his words. Something like, "Linda, our marriage was a mistake. I found true love. Jennifer understands me like no one else." Sarah frowned. "That's incredibly cruel. 20 years of marriage, 2 children, and he wants to humiliate me in front of everyone I love." I clenched my fists so tight my nails dug into my palms. "So I'm going to beat him to it. File the papers the day before the party. And when he makes his dramatic announcement, I'll simply say I've already filed for divorce. My plan was simple: ruin his moment of triumph, take away his control over the situation, show that I wasn't a victim. I was the one making decisions. And when he said those words last night, I was ready. The papers were filed, accounts frozen, and my own surprise was waiting for its moment. "What do you mean, account frozen?" Mike shouted into his phone, standing in the middle of our now my living room. 3 days had passed since my birthday, and reality was starting to sink in for him. I sat in the kitchen, calmly sipping my coffee and watching his face change colors, from red to almost purple. I have to admit, the spectacle gave me a certain satisfaction. "What do you mean, until the court decision?" He escalated to yelling. "That's my money. I earned it." When he finished the call, he stared at me with an expression that might have seemed pitiful if I were still capable of feeling pity for him. "Linda, what have you done?" His voice trembled. "How am I supposed to live?" "Where?" "I suppose with Jennifer," I shrugged. "Isn't that where you were planning to go?" He collapsed into the chair across from me. "You don't understand. Jennifer rents a studio apartment. There's no room." "Not my problem." I took another sip of coffee. "My lawyer has already filed for alimony and fair division of property. You can take your personal belongings. Everything else stays here until the court decision." At that moment, our children walked into the kitchen. Jason, 16, and Emily, 14. They looked coldly at their father. "Mom, we're ready for school," Emily said, pointedly ignoring Mike. "Kids, Mike began, but Jason cut him off. "Not now, Dad. Maybe we can talk when you stop destroying our family." They left, leaving Mike open-mouthed. "See?" I stood up, getting ready to leave. "The kids aren't thrilled about your gift on my birthday. Not to mention that you've been cheating on their mother for months. That's not fair." He jumped up. "You're turning them against me." "I don't need to turn them against you. You did that yourself in front of 50 witnesses. That same evening, Jennifer called me. I hadn't expected this call. "Mrs. Harris, Linda." Her voice sounded uncertain. "Mike said he has nowhere to live and that all the accounts are frozen." "And?" I asked coldly. He told me he had savings, his own business. He promised we'd buy an apartment right away." I laughed. "Jennifer, welcome to reality. His business is the car dealership where he's a hired manager, and his savings are our family money, half of which belongs to me." After a long pause, she quietly said, "I didn't know." When I hung up, I felt a strange satisfaction. Mike would spend the night on his friend Bill's couch, without money, without the kids' support, and judging by Jennifer's voice, soon possibly without a girlfriend too. His name is Frank Kowalski. Sarah handed me a business card with an eye image and the words Kowalski Investigations. One of the best private investigators in Dallas. He'll help find anything Mike might be hiding. I turned the card over in my hands. "You think there's something else?" 20 years in family law has taught me one thing. If a husband is cheating, he's usually dishonest with money too, Sarah shrugged. Especially when we're talking about someone working in the car business. Frank turned out to be a short, stocky man with observant eyes. He listened to my story, taking notes in a small notebook. "So, a car dealership manager," he muttered. "Interesting." 2 weeks later, we had another meeting. "Mrs. Harris," Frank laid out photos on the table. "Your husband has been regularly visiting Diamond Dreams jewelry store. Here he is leaving with packages." I stared at images of Mike, my husband of 20 years, smiling while carrying gifts for another woman. "And here are the receipts." The detective produced copies of checks. "Over the past year, he spent around $40,000 on jewelry. Your family tax returns don't reflect such expenses." 40,000? I felt the blood drain from my face. "Where did he get that kind of money?" Frank smiled. "That's where things get interesting. I spoke with several former employees of the dealership. Turns out there's a practice of selling premium cars for cash with underreported official prices." "I don't understand." "A buyer pays, say, $100,000 for a car. They report 80 in the documents and 20 stays under the table. The dealership gets their cut and the salesperson gets theirs. The IRS knows nothing. Oh my God! I covered my mouth with my hand. That's a criminal offense. Exactly, nodded Frank. I have several recordings of phone conversations where Mike discusses such deals. Sarah, who was present during the conversation, decisively closed the folder with documents. Linda, now we have everything to demand a complete financial audit. If it's confirmed that Mike was hiding income, the court won't be lenient with him. That evening, Mike called me. His voice sounded tense. Linda, what the hell is going on? My lawyer received a request for a complete financial audit for the past 5 years. Have you lost your mind? No, Mike, I replied calmly. I just want to know how much family money you spent on diamonds for Jennifer, and how much tax you didn't pay on those cash deals at the dealership. There was a long pause. You can't. His voice trembled. Linda, this will destroy me. I'm so sorry, dear. I used the same words he had said on my birthday. But I've found my true self, and this new me won't let you deceive me anymore. I didn't plan to destroy Mike's career. Honestly. I just wanted justice for myself and the kids. But when you start a domino effect, it's hard to predict how many pieces will fall. It all began with an anonymous letter. Frank insisted that information about financial malpractices should reach the dealership management. Not for revenge, he explained, but for your protection. If it turns out you knew and kept quiet, you could have problems. A week after sending the letter, Mike called me. I immediately knew something had happened. His voice sounded like he'd aged 10 years. I've been fired, he said without preamble. Someone sent Thompson a letter with evidence of under-the-table deals. I remained silent. Was it you, Linda? His voice held a mixture of fury and despair. Did you destroy my career? I didn't send any letters, Mike. Technically, this was true. Frank sent it. But did you really think you could keep deceiving both the IRS and your employer forever? He hung up. That same evening, my doorbell rang. A tearful Jennifer stood on my doorstep. I've been fired too. Her perfect makeup was smeared. Corporate ethics, affair with a married colleague. I won't be able to find a decent job with this kind of reference. I crossed my arms. And you came to me? Seriously? Mike said you orchestrated all this. She was shouting now. That you're getting revenge on us. Jennifer, I tried to speak calmly, you started sleeping with my husband? He publicly humiliated me on my birthday. What exactly in this situation makes me the villain? She stepped back. He said you'd been living like roommates for years, that you knew about us and didn't mind. I laughed. And you believed that? God, Jennifer, for a secretary, you're surprisingly naive. I love him. She said it as if that explained everything. Then why are you here instead of with him? She lowered her eyes. He's not in a good state right now, yelling at me, blaming me for everything. Says if it weren't for me, he wouldn't have lost his family and job. Everything was becoming clearer. Let me guess. I leaned against the doorframe. He's living in your studio apartment, spending your money and blaming you for his problems. Tears rolled down her face. I thought he was different. A week later, Jason came home from school with news. Mom, you won't believe it. Tom's dad said that Dad is now working as a sales clerk at their electronics store, and Jennifer dumped him. They say she moved back to her parents in Oklahoma. And that's how Mike's great love story ended. Without a job, without a girlfriend, without the respect of friends who, one by one, stopped answering his calls. The dominoes kept falling. The court hearing was scheduled for 9 a.m. I wore a formal navy blue suit that I'd bought specifically for this day. Sarah had advised me to look professional, but not provocative. Are you nervous? She asked when we met outside the courthouse. A little, I admitted. But I'm ready. Mike was already inside with his lawyer, a young man who looked like he'd just graduated from law school yesterday. My ex-husband had noticeably lost weight. His suit hung loosely, and dark circles lined his eyes. Everything will be fine, Sarah whispered. We have an ironclad case. Judge Ramirez turned out to be an elderly man with a penetrating gaze and zero tolerance for drama. He immediately made it clear he wouldn't tolerate emotional outbursts. Mike's lawyer spoke first. Your Honor, my client has been the victim of a deliberate, carefully planned conspiracy aimed at depriving him of his livelihood and reputation, he began. Mrs. Harris purposefully collected information, which proved to be accurate, the judge interrupted. According to the financial audit, Mr. Harris was indeed concealing income. But the method of obtaining this information is not illegal, the judge interrupted again. The private investigator had all the necessary licenses. Continue with the substance of the case. Mike's lawyer lost his rhythm but tried to recover. Then allow me to point out the obvious fact of female cunning. Mrs. Harris filed for divorce the day before my client's announcement, clearly attempting to preempt him and present herself as the victim. Judge Ramirez frowned. Female cunning? Are you seriously using that argument in my courtroom in 2025? He shifted his gaze to Mike. Mr. Harris, you publicly announced your intention to leave your wife at her birthday party in front of 50 guests. Is that correct? Mike nodded. Yes, but... And you were indeed having an affair with a colleague? Yes, but Linda. And you were indeed hiding income and spending significant amounts on gifts for this woman? Mike swallowed. Technically, yes. The judge looked at his watch. I believe we can save the court's time, he addressed the lawyers. Is there a possibility of reaching an agreement? After 2 hours of negotiations in a separate room, we returned to the courtroom with a signed agreement. So, Judge Ramirez skimmed the document. Mrs. Harris receives the house, her car, and 65% of the family savings. Mr. Harris agrees to pay $2,500 in monthly child support until the youngest child reaches adulthood. Is that correct? We both nodded. As we left the courtroom, Mike caught up with me. Are you happy? The bitterness in his voice was almost tangible. You've ruined my life. I stopped and looked him in the eyes. No, Mike. You ruined it yourself. The moment you decided that 20 years of marriage could be thrown in the trash for a young secretary. The moment you decided to humiliate me in front of our children and friends, I just didn't let you walk away unpunished. He watched silently as I walked away. That day I felt not triumph, but rather relief, as if a heavy backpack had been lifted from my shoulders. Ahead was a new life, without Mike, but also without lies. Mrs. Harris? Linda Harris. The nurse called me from the waiting room. Doctor, Burns is ready to see you. I stood up, adjusted my uniform, and smiled. Actually, I'm Nurse Harris. I work here. Dr. Burns is my supervisor. The new girl blushed. I'm so sorry. It's only my first day. No worries. I patted her shoulder. I was once the new girl too. 10 years ago, to be precise, before I left the profession for my family, before Mike decided he needed a new life without me. Returning to nursing after such a break was terrifying. For the first few weeks, I'd come home exhausted and collapse into bed without even eating dinner. But the kids encouraged me. Mom, you've got this, Jason would say, helping me study new protocols. You're the smartest nurse in Texas. Emily took over most of the household chores. She cooked dinners, did the laundry, and even learned to pay bills online. You took care of us for so many years, she said. Now it's our turn. Mike moved into a small apartment across town. He found a job as a salesman at another dealership, but for much less money. Every month, he dutifully transferred the child support. Occasionally, he called the kids. The conversations were awkward. How's your mom doing? He usually asked at the end. Great, Jason would answer. She's head nurse of the department now. Or, fantastic, Emily would say. She's even lost 10 pounds. I knew the kids deliberately told him about my successes. It was their small revenge. Jennifer married an auto mechanic from Tulsa 6 months after breaking up with Mike. I found out accidentally, stumbling across her social media profile. In the photos, she looked happy, with a visibly pregnant belly. I felt neither anger nor envy, just relief that this chapter was closed. Mike tried to rebuild his relationship with the kids. Sometimes he'd take them for the weekend, bring them gifts, try to compensate with money for what he'd destroyed with his actions. You know, Jason told me after one such meeting, I almost feel sorry for him. He looks like he's aged 20 years, and all his jokes seem sad now. He made his choice. I replied. Now he's living with the consequences. As for me, I chose to move forward. I enrolled in advanced training courses, became head nurse, learned to live not just without Mike, but with a sense of my own value and strength. And somewhere along the way, I discovered I was smiling again. For real. Linda? Oh my God, is that really you? Susan, my longtime friend, stared at me with wide eyes. We bumped into each other at the mall 8 months after the divorce. I had just left the salon with a new haircut, a short bob with highlights instead of my usual long chestnut hair. "You look amazing," she exclaimed. "And did you lose weight?" I smiled. 20 pounds. Turns out stress and regular workouts do wonders. Susan shook her head. Who would have thought divorce would be so good for you? At home, an envelope from Dallas College of Nursing was waiting for me. I had applied for advanced qualification courses for nursing management. Seeing the word congratulations in the first line of the letter, I literally jumped for joy. "What happened, Mom?" Emily asked, peeking into the room. "I got in." I waved the letter. In a year, I could become head nurse of the department. That evening, the kids and I had a small celebration. Jason made his signature tacos, and Emily baked a low-calorie cheesecake following a recipe she found online. To Mom! Jason raised his soda glass. The coolest nurse and strongest woman I know. And the most beautiful, added Emily. Dr. Burns definitely noticed that. I felt myself blushing. What nonsense! Mom, Emily rolled her eyes. He's asked you for coffee 3 times already. Those are work meetings, I objected. Sure, the kids replied in unison with identical smirks. Dr. Burns, Michael Burns, was the new cardiologist at our hospital. Divorced, no kids, with a gentle smile and kind eyes. And yes, he had indeed asked me for coffee. And yes, the last time I accepted. Later, lying in bed, I thought about how my life had changed. I felt younger, more energetic, more confident, as if I'd shed not just extra weight, but the burden of an unhappy marriage I'd carried on my shoulders for so long. My phone pinged with a notification, a message from Dr. Burns. Thanks for coffee today. Would you like to have dinner on Friday? I smiled and replied, I'd love to. I didn't expect to see Mike at Jason's high school graduation. Not that he didn't have the right to be there. He was the father, after all. It's just that in recent months, he'd rarely shown up at school events. Linda, he approached me after the ceremony, you look great. Thanks, I nodded, trying to be polite. I wanted to talk to you. He nervously rubbed his hands. Maybe we could grab a coffee. We sat in a cafe across from the school. Mike had visibly aged. His hair showed streaks of gray. New wrinkles surrounded his eyes. Linda, I've been thinking a lot, he began. About us, about what I did. I made a terrible mistake. I silently stirred my coffee. Jennifer got married, he continued. She has a baby now, and I'm alone. I realized I lost the most valuable thing I had, you and our family. Mike ... Please, just listen. I've changed. Found a good job at an insurance company. I'm seeing a therapist. I understand what a selfish jerk I was. He looked into my eyes. Maybe we could try again? Start over? I took a deep breath. Mike, I appreciate your honesty. Really. And I'm glad you're working on yourself. But no, I can't come back. Because of that doctor? He pursed his lips. The kids told me. Not just that. The thing is, I'm happy now. Truly happy. Without you. He lowered his gaze. I understand. I just wanted you to know. I regret everything. I accept your apology. I lightly touched his hand. And you know what? I'm grateful to you. Grateful? He raised his eyebrows. If you hadn't left so dramatically, I might never have found the strength to start a new life. So, thank you. Later, as we were saying goodbye, Mike asked, The kids, do they still hate me? They're growing up, Mike. Jason's heading to college soon. Emily next year. Just be there for them. Support them. The rest will come with time. Mike nodded. I'll try to be a better father. When I returned home, Michael was waiting for me. We'd been dating for 6 months. "How did it go?" he asked, kissing my cheek. Surprisingly, well, I smiled. I think Mike has finally grown up. It's just a shame it took destroying our family to get there. Some of us need to lose everything to understand what really matters, Michael philosophically noted, embracing me. "Happy birthday, sweetheart." Michael kissed me, handing over a huge bouquet of roses. Exactly 1 year had passed since the day my life turned upside down. Today I turned 41, and we were celebrating at home, in the same house where the drama unfolded a year ago. But how everything had changed. Instead of 50 guests, just those closest to me, the kids, my sister Carol, and Michael. Instead of tension and fake smiles, genuine laughter and warmth. "Remember how Dad made a scene last year?" Emily giggled, setting out plates. "And how you totally owned him." "Emily." I shook my head but couldn't hold back a smile. "It's already family legend," Jason winked. "Perfect. I filed for divorce yesterday." "Classic." We laughed, recalling that evening which had seemed like the end of the world then, but now seemed almost comical. After dinner, Jason brought a stack of letters and gifts that had arrived by mail. "From Grandma? From Aunt Martha?" He sorted through the envelopes. "Oh, and from Dad, too." I took the greeting card. Inside was written, "Linda, hope this birthday brings you only joy. You deserve happiness. Mike." Without a word, I tossed the card into the trash can. Not out of anger, just because the past belonged in the past. "Make a wish." Michael brought over a cake with candles. I closed my eyes and thought, let everything stay as it is. I'm happy. And it was true. I was finally truly free and happy. On my 41st birthday, I received the best gift, a new life.